All right, good morning, everyone. What we are going, this recording, the purpose of this recording is to go over the self-review process assignments. So this is basically weeks 8, and then I'm going to do a preview of week 9. Um, so we're coming here towards the end, so we're about to wrap things up in the next couple of weeks. So what you're doing is you're taking the writing assignments that you've already completed. It was writing assignment 2, and you did 2 paragraphs. So you wrote compare contrast and you wrote a cause effect. What you're going to be doing in week 9 is taking those paragraphs through the self-review process, which is a revision process. It helps you figure out what to revise and what grade your paragraph is going to get. But before you do it with your own writing, you're going to do some practice assignments so you can practice the self-review process. So under course or in course content. So I'm going to scroll down. And it's week 8 and week 9. So they're in one folder together. Still online lessons and assignments. And up here we have a general outline for how we're going to wrap up these last few weeks. So week 6 and 7, you wrote your comparison and contrast. In week 6 and week 7, you wrote the cause effect paragraph. Week 8, which is this week, you're going to do the self-review process. So you're going to practice that. And what we're doing in this recording is I'm going to go through with you and do one compare contrast paragraph, and then you're going to do the other one on your own. So we're going to begin in week 8. All right, so week 8 goes through what is revising. So the difference between revising and editing has to do with correcting sentence structures, things like punctuation, spelling. Revising is focused more on ideas and adding ideas or perhaps taking away ideas that don't fit and adding transitions, which transition words and phrases to connect ideas. So revising is about ideas and editing is about just correcting mistakes, minor errors. So the self-review process is all about revision. It's a two-step strategy and it's going to help you improve the paragraph. What you do in step 1, it requires you to score or grade your paragraph based on a rubric. And then step 2 requires you to complete the self-review form, and you're using the rubric and the paragraph to complete the form. And when you get the form complete, you're going to be able to see what you need to add, what you need to take away. So what revisions need to be done to the paragraph. Now, you're not going to be revising these example paragraphs, of course. You will, at the last half of week 9, we'll choose one of the paragraphs to revise. So you're going to take both of them, both the compare contrast and the cause effect paragraph, through the self-review process at the beginning of week 9. And after that, you're going to decide which one you're going to go ahead and use for writing assignment 3 and revise and get that to a improved final draft form. So what this is just tells you overall what to do for these last few weeks. So before you complete the self-review process, like I said, on your own writing, that's going to be in week 9. You're going to practice it for compare, contrast, and cause effect using example paragraphs. So for week 8, you're going to complete the self-review process practice assignments in the order they're listed. So we're going to go into first the self-review process for compare, contrast. Up here, this is reviewing the organization and structure. So make sure that you've already reviewed this before viewing this recording. And we're going to go ahead and do self-review step 1. So we're going to grade a compare contrast paragraph based on the rubric. And what you're going to do, this tells you step by step what to do. So first, you're going to complete step 1 for student example A. So you're going to download this student example A compare contrast, and you need to download the step 1 instructions. So I'm going to download both of those. Okay, and make sure and click enable editing. All right, so this is the whole process. This takes you step by step through what to do. So I'm walking you through it with an example paragraph. Um, and so I'm not going to read these word for word. The purpose of this, the reason it's so detailed is so that you can go back and read it. And when you're doing your own paragraph, you want to make sure and read everything carefully. So I'm going to walk through with you how to do this. So the paragraph that you downloaded, you're going to see it's already annotated. And I'm going to click Enable Editing. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Move this over. Okay, let's zoom in. Okay, I'm going to do one more step. Let's go to 150. Okay, so now that you can probably see the paragraph better. There we go. All right, so this is, you're going to see different annotations. So you've got some yellow highlighting, some blue, some green, some red font. And what this is going to help you determine, it's going to help you fill out it's going to help you score the rubric and determine what the grade of the paragraph is. And you pay attention to the annotations by following the instructions. Okay, so at the end of the paragraph, on the second page of that paragraph, there's a rubric. So let me go there. So this is the rubric that you're going to be scoring, and it's very detailed. So you have to determine where the paragraph lands. So there's different categories. You have main idea, you have organization of ideas, you have overall structure having to do with organization, you have development of supporting details, and you have language and style. What your instructions tell you, the step one, is what to do in each of those categories to determine where to score that paragraph at on the rubric. So each one of these categories gives you these things. First, you're going to have a description of the category. Second, you're going to be asked to look for certain elements in the paragraph, and that's going to be based on the annotation. So you're going to look for certain annotations. And then third, you're going to answer the questions. And after you do that, you're going to be able to determine the score. So you're going to go back to the rubric and score it. First, we're going to begin with main idea, which is the first category. And for main idea, you're looking for a topic sentence. So a topic sentence states the two main subjects and indicates if similarities or differences are discussed. All right, what are you going to look for in the paragraph? You need to find the annotated topic sentence, and it's going to be red font highlighted in yellow. And within that topic sentence, there needs to be main subjects in bold red font, and there needs to be some vocabulary or terminology that indicates if you're going to be writing about if the paragraph is writing about similarities or differences. All right, so what we're going to do now is go to the paragraph and we're looking for the topic sentence. And it's highlighted there in yellow. So we have the left and right hemispheres or halves of the brain are dominant or more proficient in different areas. So you do have two main subjects in bold red font. You have left hemisphere and right hemisphere. And right here it indicates that it's going to be talking about differences. So now you want to go back and answer the questions. Now, answering the questions part, this doesn't have to be written out. You're not turning this into me. This is just a guide for you to be able to score the rubric correctly. So if you want to answer these in your head, that's fine. It's completely up to you, but you're not turning this into me. So first question, does the topic sentence state the two main subjects? Yes, it does. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Does the topic sentence indicate if similarities or differences are discussed? Yes, it does. All right, now we're going to go and score the rubric based on that category. So each one of these sections is going to tell you exactly what to look for. So by the time you get to the rubric, you just need to read the descriptions on the rubric and you should know where to score it. Okay, so it starts with the F, which is the worst, and works up to the A. So however, wherever you want to start, I usually am going to start at the F and work our way up. So no topic sentence, that doesn't apply. Does not state the main subjects, that doesn't apply either because it does. Does not clearly state them. No, it's pretty clear. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. So it states the subjects. Does it indicate similarities or differences? Yes. Is the sentence awkward or wordy? So no, the sentence read clearly, it flowed. So I'm going to go ahead and score for main idea in the A category. Now, if you're not sure about sentence structure, just do your best. And because when you grade your paragraph, these won't be on there. So you're not going to be, excuse me, I'm not going to count for grading sentence structure. You can go ahead and grade it, but it's not going to count against you. All right, so what I do to indicate where it's at on the rubric is I'm going to change the font color. So I'm going to make it red. And might make it bold to make it stand out. All right, so that's main idea. We've got a good topic sentence. It states the main subjects. And we know we're going to be talking about differences. So now you go to the next category. So we have organization of ideas. And I'm going to make this to where it's only one page at a time. All right, so organization of ideas. Skip forward to that. All right, so here's the description. When you're looking at organization of ideas, what you're looking for is still the two main subjects that are being written about, but you're looking for the points of comparison or contrast. So let me go to the rubric for a second. All right, so if you look here, so you still have main subjects, and they have points of comparison or contrast. And if you kind of just skim and look at the description, so again, it's asking if they're clearly stated or not. And we've already kind of done that here. So some of these are going to sort of be interconnected. So the fact that you've already looked at the main subjects here, you already know that they're clear. What you're really focusing on are the points of comparison and contrast. Now, they have to be parallel, which means they have to be the same points for both main subjects. So let me go back to the instructions. So points of comparison or contrast are general. So they're the general similarities and differences discussed for each main subject. So these are going to be general topics. The points of comparison or contrast, they have to be the same. And what that means is it must be the same general topic for both main subjects. So for whatever difference or similarity you talk about for main subject A, you have to talk about the same one for main subject B. So what you're going to look for, you're going to find all the words and phrases that refer to the main subject. And you're going to, and those are going to be highlighted in bold red font, and you're going to be looking for the points of comparison or contrast, and it's bold black font. All right, so we're going to do that first, then we'll come back and answer the questions. Okay, so I have my topic sentence. Now I'm not going to look at that anymore. I'm looking at the remainder of the paragraph. And so I can see here that the left brain is mentioned and then the right brain. And then they go back to the left hemisphere and still talking about the left side, then moving on to the right, and then the left, and then the right again. So this, the fact that it moves back and forth between the two main subjects, that's going to tell you a little bit more about the overall organization. So like I said, some of these are interconnected, but this is highlighted now. So we'll be able to look at that in the next step. But I just wanted to go over with you that you are looking for those. But what you're focusing on more for organization of ideas are these points of comparison and contrast. All right, so we have the left brain is more detail oriented. So that is a point of comparison or contrast. And then it has, whereas the right brain is better at seeing the global or broader, more general picture. So left brain is detail oriented and the right brain is more general. Then we have processing language. Oh, that should be black. Let me change that. That is a point of comparison or contrast. And then we have analytical abilities and spatial relationships. Now, we have a problem here because these don't seem like they are parallel. So what you're looking for is if you were going to talk about the left brain and the right brain and the fact that one sees detail and one is more general, there needs to be a generalized term for this topic. So right now it looks like they're not parallel or the same points of comparison. So it might be, so this might be how the left brain maybe processes images. So here we have processing language, that's general. So that works, and it gives us the difference between the left and the right. But up here, we're missing a point of comparison that is general or the same between both of them. And then if we come down here at the bottom, again, this happens. So for processing language, left hemisphere is the one in charge, or that it appears to be it's limited to processing literal meanings. Left side processes the dictionary definition. Suggested meanings are processed by the right side. So that's all about processing language. But now we come down to talking about analytical abilities and recognizing spatial relationships. So those are different points of comparison and contrast. I would need a general category like processing language for that to be parallel. So we're going to go to the rubric. Oh, wait, let me scroll down. Oh, wait, no, first question, sorry. So are the main subjects written about in the same order they are listed in the topic sentence? If you forget to check something, this is telling you what to look for. So let's go back and look at that. And I believe they are. So it begins with the left and then the right. And so it starts with the left brain in the first sentence after the topic sentence. So yes, they're written about in the same order that they're in the topic sentence. So we're good there. Is each main subject followed by points of comparison or contrast? Yes, it is. Do the main subjects have parallel points of comparison and contrast? And no, they do not, because that's what I was talking about. Now here, this gives an example. So if your first point of comparison or contrast, point one, is expenses, talking about expenses for the first main subject, then you have to talk about expenses for the second main subject. So that's what I was talking about when I said a more general category or topic. So this paragraph would have to improve on that because they do not have parallel points of comparison. So we're going to go to the rubric now and score it. And main subjects are clearly stated, but we have to get down here to the points of comparison to see where this is going to be scored at. So we have main subjects, so that doesn't apply. Unclear, the main subjects are clear. Now it says main subjects not clearly stated, and then main subjects do not have parallel or the same points of comparison. Well, this is correct. They do not. So I'm going to highlight this in red. So sometimes when you grade, you might be in two different columns, and that's okay. It happens. And I'm going to come over here. Main subjects are clearly stated, and they are written in the same order as the topic sentence. Well, I'm going to keep the score for the main subjects up here in the A category since I already scored it in A for the previous one. And they are written in the same order, so that is also going to go in the A category. All right, now moving on to overall structure. So we've already looked at the main subjects that are highlighted in bold red font. Oh, let me go back up here. So we're going to use those to determine what the overall structure is. So let's go to our instructions. So organization overall structure. So main subjects are annotated throughout the paragraph, and that's going to help you determine the overall structure. You're looking to see if it's whole to whole or point by point. Whole to whole talks about all of the points of comparison from the first main subject and then moves on to the second main subject. Point by point will move back and forth. So it'll talk about a point of comparison for main subject A, then it'll go to main subject B. And so it moves back and forth. What are we looking for? We're looking where the main subjects are, and if they are if all of main subject A is talked about in the first part of the paragraph and then main subject B in the second, or does it move back and forth? And these questions kind of help you determine that. And I already discussed it earlier because they do go back and forth. So it goes from left brain to right brain to left, back to right. So it's moving back and forth. So it's doing point by point. It's not doing whole to whole. So, and either one is fine. It's not incorrect. They're both correct, but you just want to make sure and score that on the rubric. So we're going to go down to the rubric for overall organization, and you're looking down here. So there's either no structure that's weak, limited, sufficient, or effective. And I'm going to call it sufficient, and it is sufficient point by point structure. And I'm calling it only sufficient because the structure is limited because they don't have parallel or the same points of comparison. So it's okay. It's sufficient, but when they add in the points of comparison in the revision, it'll probably be better. So I'll go ahead and put that in the B category. All right, development of supporting details. And go back to the instructions. All right, so development means making an idea clear by explaining it. And you want to explain it in a way that you're building on the idea, so it adds more and more details. So when you're developing a main idea in a paragraph, you begin with general, supporting details, and you end with specific. So general supporting details are categories. So for example, a general supporting detail would be a place of employment. So that doesn't tell me a particular place. The specific would be he's employed at Old Navy in the mall. So general is information that doesn't give specific or individual names, dates, places, things like that. And the general supporting details are already annotated for you in blue, and the specific are in green. And we're going to go ahead and preview the questions this time because there's certain things you have to look for. You want to make sure that there's both general and specific supporting details included. You want to make sure that the order of them begins general and they move on to specific, and they have to have about the same. There has to be the same amount of general supporting details as there is specific, so they need to balance. So let's go look at the paragraph. And here we go. So for the first point of comparison, they're not parallel. We have that the left brain is detail oriented, the right brain sees a broader or more general picture. That's general information. So detail oriented, well, how is it detail oriented? I would need more examples. It might give me an example. The left brain would see the fine paint strokes on a very small area of a painting or something like that. So you need an example, a more specific example to back it up. So these are all general. And continuing on, there's still more general supporting details. We finally get to something more specific when it talks about how the left side processes language, and it only interprets the literal, so it uses dictionary definitions. So this paragraph is very weak with specific supporting details. What needs to happen is after each one of these points of comparison, you introduce it with general um, supporting details, but then it needs to go ahead and add a specific example because it has to move from general to specific for each point of comparison. And it only does that one time, and it's kind of weak. So I gave it credit for being um, more specific because literal meanings are dictionary definitions. So this one definitely does not have a balance. It doesn't move from general to specific with each point of contrast or comparison. And so let's go to the rubric and look at where we're going to score it. All right, so most of the time, and I can tell already with this one, I don't need to look at these two columns over here. I'm going to start in the C. All right, so it provides general but lacks specific supporting details. Yes, that's exactly what is going on. So it attempts to develop it, but it doesn't do a very good job. So I'm going to go ahead and score it right there because it needs to add specific supporting details. The last thing that you're going to look at is transitions. And so let's go back up. Now, in this case, I didn't highlight the transition. So this is where you're going to have to go ahead and do this on your own. So there will be a transitions and linking words handout. And what you're going to do is go through and figure out what the transitions are. For the most part, it's probably going to be in areas that it's not annotated. So, for example, whereas is a transition because it shows contrast. So transition words connect ideas by showing the relationships between them. And so I'm going to make that bold and purple because that's the color for transitions. And then we have when it comes to processing language, when can be considered a transition. And if you're not sure, like I said, you just get that transitions and linking words chart that would be attached to the assignment for step 1. And I'm not really seeing any more except for this last one here overall. Oh, and yes, I'll consider whereas another one. Now, what you want to do to score this on the rubric is you need to decide, does it have sufficient transitions? Well, this is compare contrast, so it is showing contrast with whereas. And the term when could possibly show contrast. And then we have a concluding, we have a transition that indicates it's a concluding statement. So let's go to the rubric. I'm going to scroll down. So for transitions, if there's none, of course, you put it there. If there's few to none here, but we're at least in the C area, so there are some transitions to connect the sentences and ideas. And I'm going to put it few because there's really not enough ideas to actually use more transitions. So they need to add ideas and they need to add transitions when they add the additional ideas. Okay, so we've got it scored. And what you need to do now is you come up here and you've got to give it a numerical grade. So what I do is I look at where most of the marks fall. So there's 3 in the C category, but we've got several in the A and some in the B. Now, general rule is if it has some in the A and some in the C, it's going to land somewhere here in the middle. And I would give this one probably an 80. Because it's kind of right there in the middle and it did not, it's really important to have parallel points of comparison and specific supporting details, and it lacks those, so it's leaning more toward the C side. So I would give that an 80, and then I'm going to go ahead and highlight the letter grade. So you want to go ahead and try and give it a numerical score along with a letter grade. And this is what you're going to be doing to your own paragraph in week 9. So that's step 1. And this recording, I'm going to go ahead and go through step 2 with you so you know how to fill out the self-review form. And for this assignment, I went ahead and attached the self-review to this student example, student example A, but it won't be attached to the other one. And I'll show you that in a minute. But let's go ahead and go through this self-review form for this paragraph. But let me go back to the class for a second so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we just did the self-review step 1. And what you would do at this point, for the one that you're going to do on your own, you're going to do student example B. Once you get to the rubric scored and you get to the end of that process, you will attach the file and submit it. And I'm asking you to attach both of them in this case. So you're going to go through this recording, finish up for student example A, and then you'll come back and do student example B on your own, and you'll submit them both. But what I'm going to go ahead and do now is show you how to do the self-review step 2 using student example A, because we've already scored the rubric for that, and that's what you need. You have to have the rubric scored and the annotations to fill out the self-review form. Okay, so the self-review, you don't have to download it for this case because it's already at the end of the student example A. And here we go. And what you're doing here is the same areas, you look for the annotations and you refer to the rubric and you're just reading these and deciding yes or no. So up here, so for each item, indicate whether or not the paragraph meets the requirements for each section. That's where you'll put a check mark down here. And then over here, it's going to ask you for certain things directly from the paragraph to copy and paste them over. Um, and it goes same categories that we did when we did the scoring of the rubric. So the first one is the main idea. So there is a topic sentence. Does it state the central main subjects in the order they're written in the paragraph? Yes, it did, because the rubric tells us it did. So you just refer back to the rubric and what you already scored it. So it does write them in the same order, clearly stated. And does it indicate similarities or differences? Yes, it does. So I'm going to click yes, and I'm just going to put an X. I know it says a check mark, but an X is easier. And similarities or differences? Yes. And I want these centered on the same. I'm going to make that Arial black because it's darker. Okay. So yes, there. Now over here, what is the topic sentence? They want to copy and paste it. So you go to the paragraph and copy and paste. So Control C copies and Control V pastes. So I come over here and I'm going to paste it, Control V. So we have the topic sentence. Now we're going to look at the organization of the main subjects. So main subject A and main subject B, were they clearly stated? Well, I know from just grading it that yes, they were, because that's what I marked on the rubric. So I'm going to go ahead and put my X's here. So I'm going to copy and paste it. So Control C, Control V, and Control V. And I want these all uniform. Makes me crazy. So I'm just going to make them to the left instead of centered. Okay. Now, over here, what is main subject A and main subject B? And it says there's supposed to be general information, so order a phrase. Well, we have the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. So you can copy and paste them, or you can just type them out. I'm just going to type them out. So left, that's big. Make that smaller. Left hemisphere of the brain. Highlight that. So if you want to change font, you see what I'm doing here is highlight it, and this box comes up. I'm going to make that a little smaller. Make that 12. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this because all I have to do now is change it left to right. Oops. So highlight it, Control C copies, Control V paste. And I'm going to change that to right because it's the right hemisphere. So that takes care of my two main subjects. Now, was it whole to whole or point by point? It was point by point. And for that, just go ahead and I didn't indicate where to do that. You're going to go ahead and just, you can highlight it, make it red. I'm going to make it bold and red. So point by point. Now we're looking at points of comparison and contrast. So we have the first point for main subject A and the first point for main subject B. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to the paragraph and type in what I have highlighted in order. So main subject A is the left brain, and we have detail oriented. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, and then paste it. in the self-review form. And when you're doing this for your next paragraph that you do on your own, you won't have to do the scrolling back and forth because it'll be a separate page. Okay. Okay, so points of comparison or contrast, that's what I'm going to put here. So this way, I fill this out first, then I can tell if they're the same or not the same. So that was for main subject A. Now, point one for main subject B was general. So it sees the broader picture. I'm just going to put more general, copy, and paste. Now, the second point of comparison was the one that actually had the same one, so processing language. And then it talks about how processing language works for the left and right. And it's the same for main subject A and main subject B. Now, this one has a third point of comparison or contrast. Um, and what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put that under point one. Well, hang on. I'm going to make another row, but I'll correct this on you all's copy. Okay, so insert. So if you want to insert another row, you click in the one right above it, and you right click. So where it says insert, and I'm going to do below. I'm going to do that for both of these. Insert and below. Okay. Well, that one did something. What did that do? Okay, if you don't like what it does, do Control Z. Why did it do that? Let's see. Okay, we'll worry about that later. All right, so I'm not going to fill this in, but I'm going to put in over here what the main point was. Well, no, let me do that. So this is point 3. Like I said, we'll get this corrected. Control C, point 3. So Control V. I think I left it off because your paragraphs will probably only have 2. I think that's all that was required. And make this point 3. Okay, so I'll have to fix that. Now, what was the point of comparison, the third one? It had to do with analysis and spatial relationships. So in analytical abilities for main subject A, the left side, and then spatial relationships for the right. And those are not the same. I'm going to go back up, get spatial relationships. Okay, so point 1 is not the same. So I'm going to put my X here. I'm just going to go copy one. Control C to copy. Okay, so not the same. And the same for both. And not the same. And the same for main subject B. Not the same, and not the same. So right here, this tells you that this is going to have to be corrected. So when you're doing your own paragraph, this section will let you know what you need to correct, if anything, with the points of comparison. Now, here we look at the development of supporting details. This is when we're looking at, does it move from general, what do we have, general supporting details or specific? So for point 1, if you look at the paragraph, most of it is blue. The only one that has specific is for point 2 processing language. So what this part of the rubric is, the self-review form is asking you to do is check off if it's general or specific, and then what type of supporting detail. Or you can put the supporting detail itself. I'll leave that up to you. But so for point 1, it was general. And like I said, the only one that was specific was point 2 for the left. Okay, so point 1 was general. And what point 1 was for main subject A, we go back up and look, is more detail oriented. So if you don't want to put the type, just go ahead and copy and paste the supporting detail over. And I think that's better anyway. So it's more detail oriented. And then point 2 for main subject A was about processing language, and that's where it talked about the dictionaries. So it has general and specific for that one. So the left, it's the one in charge, but it can only process literal meanings, and then it processes dictionary definitions. So that's all about main subject A and point 2. So I'm scrolling down. So point 2, main subject A, pasting it. But there's also one more. There's a specific supporting detail, which is good because that's the way it's supposed to look. So when you get over here, you should have blue and green in each one of these boxes for your points of comparison. Oh, whoops, going the wrong way. Ah, too many papers. Okay, so I need processes, the dictionary definitions. Okay, now main subject B.1 wasn't detail oriented, but it was more general, but I'm going to get more than just that because there was actually is better at seeing the global or broader, more general picture. So that's the full general supporting detail. I'm copying and pasting that in the supporting detail box. Delete that. Now point 2 was also general because they only had that one specific. And it's right here, suggested meanings are processed. So that's just the supporting detail for processing language for the right side, or main subject B. And I'm just going to leave point 3 alone because we don't have space for it. But yeah, I think you get the idea. So here we have, so this one have both general and specific. So if it only has one, you mark one. If it has two, you put both. And this is general. And general. And on the root, and then here, as far as revision goes, you know, just by looking at these boxes, that there's going to have to be specific supporting details added for each of these points of comparison. And the last thing you do is list the transitions that are in the paragraph to make sure that you have an introductory one, that you have transitions between supporting details, and one that indicates you're concluding. So this is the introductory because it shows the contrast. And then it was also used between supporting details, and then I think there was when, so that was between. And then the last one was overall. I'm just going to type it. No, wait, no. It won't be purple. Okay, and then after you get your transitions copied and pasted over, you can look at them to see if you have enough. If you have 2 points of comparison, you're going to need more than just 2 transitions between supporting details. So here, one of the problems is that they're repetitive. So they need to change these up. In the introductory, there just needs to be 1. Between supporting details, it depends on how many you have. So you just have to consider how many you're offering uh, in the paragraph and keep the appropriate number of transitions. The way you want to think of it is between supporting details because you're shifting from one idea to another. So, and you need at least 1 concluding. And so this would tell me that there needs to be some work done on transitions. There's really not enough and they're repetitive. Okay, so, and that is it. So we've gone through the whole paragraph. And what you're going to do now is go through this whole process with example paragraph B for compare contrast. And you're going to be doing the same thing with cause effect. And I will have that video ready pretty soon. So what you're doing with this, you want to make sure you complete the student example A because you completed it with me. And then you're doing student example B completely on your own. And if we go to the class, it does tell you that in the instructions, so just read everything carefully or watch the recording again if you forget. So once you finish with student example B, then that's all you do for compare contrast, and you'll move on to the next folder for cause effect, and there will be another video in that folder for the cause and effect paragraph. All right, so if even after this, if you still have questions or you need assistance, then email me and I will get back to you as soon as possible.